Today on Sports Central, we're going over a college football game preview and prediction on a big matchup in the Big Ten in Week 15. That's certainly going to have some big bowl implications, and this one's going to be between the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Minnesota Golden Gophers, two teams of which you have had somewhat disappointing seasons, that's for sure, but both teams are still capable of making it to a bowl game, and the loser of this game is going to be fully eliminated from making one. Meanwhile, for the winner, they're still very much in contention for one. So there's actually a lot of risk in this matchup, even though it's a matchup between a 2-3 team and a 2-4 team. We're going to be going over a full game preview on it here today, starting out with their team trends. Nebraska beat Purdue last week, 37-27. Good win there for the Huskers. I mean, they were pretty dominant throughout the entire game. Purdue kind of hung on there at the end, but and they looked like Purdue was going to start coming back, which they definitely did. But Nebraska still got a good win there, 37-27. As for Minnesota, they also beat Purdue a few weeks back. Minnesota has not played in almost 3 weeks, so they did not play in week 14 or 13. But yeah, they beat Purdue previously, 34-31. That was their last win. So both teams have beaten Purdue, and as for both teams, both teams also got 2 wins here. Minnesota beat Illinois earlier on in the season. And Nebraska beat Penn State earlier on in the season. Winning streaks for both these teams, Nebraska and Minnesota, both on one-game winning streaks heading into this matchup. This game is going to be on Saturday, December 12th, 11 a.m. Central Time in Lincoln, Nebraska. So the Huskers will be the home team here. Spread currently says Nebraska by 10.5. That is a very heavy spread considering both teams here are, somewhat the same in skill, it looks like right now, with one team being 2-4 and one being 2-3. And so, that's not all that much of a surprise. Over-under is currently 59, and then the ESPN FPI has Nebraska here 56%. Vegas prediction also going with the Huskers 32-20. So Nebraska is favored in all 3 areas here. Looking at your stat comparison for this game, Nebraska's got 23 points per game, 31 points allowed. You got 192 passers a game, 174 rush yards. Then for yards allowed, they got 238 passing and then 170 rushing. So Nebraska's looking pretty good in some area. For the passing game, that's certainly been something that has improved as the season's gone on for them. Of course, they've been splitting time between Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey, which after last week, Martinez is now the leading passer on the team, as it was McCaffrey previously. But Adrian Martinez has put up just right around 700 yards of passing on the season, 2 touchdowns and an interception, which really is not terrible considering how this team is splitting quarterbacks. But he's also been very accurate. If you look at Adrian Martinez in comparison to Luke McCaffrey, there's been a huge quarterback battle here. And Martinez has been all around playing a lot better, I think, at the passing position. Because, Luke McCaffrey's thrown like 1 interception and 5 interceptions and 1 touchdown on the season. So that's been kind of the downside of him. But Adrian Martinez has actually been pretty accurate this season. His completion rate's up in the 70s right now. So that is actually a really good completion rate for any quarterback, let alone Adrian Martinez. So honestly, he's not having that terrible of a season. It's just a matter of whether or not he can continue to get starting positions. I think if Nebraska keeps starting him throughout the rest of the season, I think we're going to see good success out of the Huskers. Meanwhile, for Minnesota, they got Tanner Morgan, who's put up over 1,000 yards on the season, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And this has been, quite honestly, I hate to say it, Minnesota fans, but he has been probably the biggest disappointing player of pretty much the entire college football world this season. Tanner Morgan last season was absolutely great. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I'd probably say he was a top 4, maybe even top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten last season. This season, he's not even cracking the top 6 or 7. He's thrown 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. His completion rate's all over the place. He's got like a 60% completion rate. And all around, it's just not looking very good for Tanner Morgan right now. He's a great quarterback, and we've seen the potential that he has. But this season, I think we all can agree, has been a bit of a down one for him in comparison to last season. But then again, that's due in part to some of the talent that Minnesota did lose last season, and considering some of the players that they've had to sit out due to COVID. But Minnesota, this has been a team that has been a big disappointment this season. And they definitely want to make it to a bowl game. That's definitely the goal for them. And I definitely think Minnesota is capable of that. It's just been a really rough go to considering. If you look at Minnesota from 2019 to 2020, this team really did not lose a lot of talent. That's the thing for Minnesota that's been so surprising for me is they did not lose a lot of talent. They got Tanner Morgan back at quarterback. BJ Fleck was looking very promising. I think it's just been down year for Minnesota, and we'll probably see them be back next season. But as for the stats for them, they got 30 points per game, 34 points allowed, 206 passers a game, 198 rush yards. This has been more of a rushing team this season, as they do have their leading rusher, Abraham, who's put up 817 yards and 13 touchdowns on the season. And they also got 240 passers allowed and then 215 rush yards allowed per game. So I mean, on the defensive side, Nebraska seems to be better in the rushing category. And it looks like their secondary's been something that's kind of hurt them a little bit. But, I mean, the rushing defense definitely still needs some improvement for Nebraska, as we see a lot of teams go in and try to rush a lot on Nebraska. And that's the thing that did not work for Purdue last week. Purdue's more of a passing team than a rushing team, and Nebraska completely stopped Purdue big time on the defensive side because of, I mean, they only could pass. They didn't really have a good running back, and that's the thing that for Nebraska that's been kind of a weak spot in the past is the rushing defense, and I think Minnesota's going to really try to go in and rush a ton against Nebraska in this game. That's going to be something that Nebraska's got to be really prepared for heading into this matchup. Some key points for this one: both teams are trying to build momentum, obviously. I mean, both teams are very talented in my opinion. Like, they're much more talented than their records. Like, both teams should definitely be above 500 right now. It's just been a weird season, I think, for both teams. But winner still has a chance of making a bowl game. So this is kind of an elimination game for a bowl game this season, if you think about it, because Nebraska, if they win this game, they're 3-4, and in a crossover game that's likely going to be against Rutgers for them, that's a very winnable one. And if you win that game too, Nebraska goes to 4-4, that will more than likely put them in a bowl game. Meanwhile, for Minnesota, they're 2-3. If you can win this matchup, and I mean that puts you at 3-3, and then if you can win your crossover matchup, you pretty much got a guaranteed shot at making a bowl game. However, the loser here, I mean, whoever loses this game, that puts Minnesota at 2-4. That puts them pretty much out without reach. And then for Nebraska, if they lose, that puts them at 2-5, which is definitely, I mean, at this point, a record that you really don't want to have for one. And for two, yeah, that completely puts you out of a bowl game. So this is a very crucial game for both these teams, and it's kind of crazy to think that, I mean, both teams with losing records are going to have such a crucial game. But this truly is a crucial game here for both these teams, mainly because of the bowl situation. And for both teams, I mean, you want some good momentum heading into 2021. That's why this game is so important. But in the end, I'm going with the Huskers here. It's going to be very close. I think Minnesota's going to hang around for the majority of this game. Halftime score is going to be 17-13. Nebraska will lead it at the half. In the final, Nebraska's going to win this one. 31-23 is going to be the final score. So we're going to see Minnesota hang around for pretty much the entire game. We may see Minnesota lead in a couple of circumstances as well. But I think the Huskers, I mean, I think with them being at home, they're going to have some good momentum in this matchup, coming off of a good win last week to Purdue. Meanwhile, for Minnesota, I mean, we might see a little bit of rust on Minnesota coming into this matchup, because if you think about it, this Minnesota team has not played in like 3 weeks, and this is going to be an impactful game for them for that reason. And for Nebraska, I mean, they played last week, had a really good win, and I think Nebraska is starting to build some good momentum here. I mean, they kept it close to an Iowa team who's currently ranked in the top 20 a couple of weeks ago. Looks like they could have gone down and won it. It was just a big error on Nebraska's side that ended up causing a loss in that game. But Nebraska is still, I think, a very talented team. We've seen a tremendous amount of upside in this team, and they've got a ton of potential. I think they get the win here, 31-23. Let me know your thoughts and comments below on this game, though. Let me know your score predictions, all that down in the comments. I appreciate you guys all sticking around. If you enjoyed this preview, slap a like on it and subscribe as well, as it really helps out the channel, and really appreciate that. But once again, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll catch you on the next one.